Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. General Walter Natynczyk is Canada's Chief of Defence Staff. He's a Winnipeg boy, born and raised, and he decided at a fairly young age to join the military despite his mother's reluctance for that career path. He is incredibly dedicated to the men and women who serve Canada, as he is to his own family, his wife Leslie of almost 30 years, and his 3 children who are all serving members of Canada's military. General Walter Natynczyk joins me now for a special interview on Beyond Politics. General Natynczyk, welcome to Beyond Politics. It's really great to have you here.
Catherine, thank you very much for having me in your program.
I remember a story about former Governor General Ray Natynczyk, who showed up at an event and said, "Hi, I'm Ray Natynczyk," and the woman who was checking names said, "And how do you spell that?" And he said, "Just like it sounds." And I thought of that when I was doing research for this show and thinking about your name and how that's probably something that you've faced occasionally over the course of your...
Well, when people
although
ask
you
me,
have a name tag.
Sure,
So.
but when people ask me how to pronounce it, I normally say Walt.
Well, and you know what? You're known as Uncle Walt.
Mm.
Did you choose that?
Well, actually, no, my soldiers did up when I was commanding my regiment in Petawawa, the Royal Canadian Dragoons, and the RSM Regimental Sergeant Major one day came to me and told me that. And so I think that stuck somewhat along the way. But also, I used to be known as Lieutenant Walt, and so sometimes it's General Walt.
Well, you know, that might be partly because of your last name, which frankly is not difficult to pronounce.
Not at all.
But it also suggests a kind of familiarity that people feel towards you, that perhaps... because when one thinks of the military, and this may well be a myth, but it's not because of the uniform, because of what you do, people don't necessarily think of someone like you being very approachable. Mm. But with a name like Uncle Walt, that seems to put the lie to that.
I hope that no matter what job or rank or wherever I've worked, I'm just a soldier. And my kids always put me back in my place, as does my wife, Leslie, because when they look at whether it be the medals or all of the accoutrements, they say, "Dad, it's just bling," you know? And so at the end of the day, I'm just a soldier. And
wearing a lot of bling.
Wearing a lot, well, you know, things happen along the way, and but I'm just a soldier, and hopefully my wife tries to keep me balanced. I haven't changed along this journey.
So you started the journey in Winnipeg.
Born and raised in Winnipeg, a long time ago.
Well, and your mom and dad were not from there originally. They both, they were from Germany and Poland, I understand.
You've done a little bit of research here.
Well, and they served
both were immigrants to Canada.
Yeah.
My father was a displaced person. He was from, at the time, eastern Poland that became annexed to Russia, and so he came to Canada via the war, really. He spent some time in Gulag in Siberia, and then came out through the Middle East and joined the Free Polish Army and fought through Italy, was wounded in Monte Cassino, and after convalescence arrived in Halifax, Pier 21 in 1946. My mother was from Germany and came to Canada a little bit later in the early 50s. But they met in Winnipeg, so Polish and German fought on opposite sides of the war, but they met in Winnipeg, and I think got a little balance from that relationship.
What did they ever tell you about how they met?
At a church dance.
Okay.
Church dance in Winnipeg. Yeah.
Okay, because it does seem pretty incredible that two people from 2 different countries should come and meet, not just in Canada, but in Winnipeg.
In Winnipeg.
Yeah. What do you remember about your mom and dad?
Well, my father was, I think he was very traumatized by the war. He was a very good man from what I remember. He passed away when I was just before my 10th birthday, he passed away. But he was a very good man, worked very, very hard, had been a blacksmith in Poland and worked construction in Canada. my mother had been a nurse's aide or nurse in Kaiserslautern, became a nurse's aide in Winnipeg. So my mom was very religious, very caring, and we were blessed to have her, myself and my two sisters, and really brought us, raised us on her own for many, many years. And so I just got very fond memories of my parents.
Your dad would have had, and probably your mom as well, very personal and probably unpleasant experiences of war. And so it's interesting that you chose a career as a soldier. Did they have any influence over that decision?
It was interesting when I was just a little young fellow on my father's knee and just listening to my dad. He would, all of his war pals would show over, his battle buddies would show up at the house, and they would reminisce, and so I'd be hearing a lot of what they did, and they had an awful time. They had a very, very difficult time. And when he passed away, and I had a bit of an interest in aircraft and Air Force and those kinds of things, and so I got into cadets. But I think part of it was the stories that I heard from my father and his brother, who was also there, his brother John, and his battle buddies of the day.
Did you have a big family? Were there a lot of you?
Well, I just have the two sisters and had an uncle, but also on my mother's side, her brother came across from Germany as well. So we were, let's say, a medium-sized family, but a lot of the family friends would come across, and many of whom obviously immigrated from both countries.
Yeah. And you were talking about your dad passing away, and that's a pretty young age for a child to lose a parent, especially for a son to lose a father. Do you remember what kind of impact it had on you at that time?
I guess originally or initially, I don't think we fathomed what was going on at that age, 9 years old, and his illness was very, very brief kind of thing, and so there was shock in the family, and I think that's why he had put me into Cub Scouts before, and so I was in Cubs and Scouts, and that kind of gave me a little bit of the male leadership and so on, as did my uncles at the same time. But it was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, and the Scouts would have given you a structure too.
I think that was really important, the structure that, and I say to people that I'm a leader, the kind of leader I am, because of really not only Scouts but cadets and sports. In high school I got into football, and again that kind of structure from sports and from the cadet organization, which allowed me to go on to leadership courses, and from there I got part-time jobs flipping burgers, and before I knew it, they recognized the leadership course that I'd taken through the cadets, and I was an assistant manager at 16 and 17 years old. And so it was really the structure provided by the Scout movement and the cadet movement. Were
you, if we went back and talked to some of your teachers, would they say, oh no, he was a really good kid, or would they say, oh, he had a real rebellious streak, that one?
No, I think the former.
Yeah.
I think the former. I was the kid, because I went into cadets, that I kept my hair reasonably short because I had to pass inspections and so on.
Right.
And at the time, I still remember my classmates calling me Sarge because they knew I was a sergeant in cadets and that kind of thing. But no, I hope I was a good kid.
Yeah. Talk to me about the decision to not take on a really lucrative career flipping burgers or delivering papers. You're also a paper boy, as I understand, for the Winnipeg Free Press.
Winnipeg Free Press, absolutely. Five years at Winnipeg Free Press until my mother told me, you're ready for something else. And I actually delivered my sister's Winnipeg Tribune for just a short while, so it tells you how long ago that was.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so, but I'm from North Centre, and I'm from the tough part of Winnipeg, Winnipeg North Centre, and plying up and down those streets through, minus 20, minus 30 degree temperatures, and so I think I learned a little bit in that period of time, but I thought that going through the cadet movement prepared me for some of the leadership challenges, and I knew I wanted to go to university and at the same time play sports, and a friend told me about the military colleges system, and so I thought, maybe I'll try military college, or indeed even go to University of Manitoba. I'd hoped to attend University of Manitoba.
Right.
But when the offer came in, it was to go to Royal Roads Military College in Victoria, British Columbia. And so that was just a tremendous opportunity, and I accepted that.
How did your mom react to that?
She was not happy with me. She was not happy with me. First of all, she didn't want me to join the military.
Yeah.
She wanted me to be a priest. And if I wasn't going to be a priest, then I should be a carpenter. Do something with my hands, do something useful.
Right.
And
stay around.
And stay around, stay in Winnipeg. And that's one of the reasons why I'd hoped to go to the University of Manitoba. But when the offer came in, and she understood, and she supported me all along the way. So it was tough on my mom, tough on the family.
Yeah, I bet it would have been. Especially if, with your dad gone, that you would have been, I mean, you had your uncles, but you would have been frankly, the male of the house.
I was. I mean, it was, I drove the family car. I mean, it was...
At 10?
No, but as soon as I turned 16, I had that driver's license 3 weeks later, and my $100 car, it was great.
What was your first car?
A Mercury Comet station wagon with no back window, but a great piece of plastic on the back, and bubble gum holding the radiator together.
I'm sure.
So.
Wow. And that car was worth every
cent
of $100.
I tell you. And at one point, my sister had a little accident with it, knocked out the headlights, and the province.
And no one could tell?
No, the province wrote off the car.
Oh, really?
They wrote off the car. Worth $100. So
that's why you went into tanks, driving tanks after that experience.
Yeah.
So, skipping ahead a little bit, you have decided on a career in the military, and you did quite well early on. I mean, your leadership qualities were recognized fairly early on. Did you always have a sense that you had the leadership qualities yourself, or that you had something more to give? I think I remember reading that you thought if you could become a captain, that would be the greatest thing of all.
Exactly. I mean, as an air cadet, for me, a captain was on a pedestal, really was. And one of the leadership lessons I offer to my officers and NCOs is: at what point do you declare success? At what point do you say that you've achieved your objective, and remove that yoke of ambition and competition from your shoulders, and really enjoy it? And early on, I thought, geez, if I could just be a captain, that would be wonderful. And I was a captain for 7 years, so I thought that was going to be it. I thought that was the end of my career.
Did you really? You really thought that would be it?
Oh, absolutely. Huh. And I saw some of my counterparts, my contemporaries, get promoted ahead of me, and I said, okay, that's it. I'm really happy being a captain. Mm-hmm. And then out of the blue, I got promoted major, so I was surprised, but willing to take that on. And then you revise your objective and say, okay, so I just want to command a squadron of my soldiers up in Petawawa, the Royal Canadian Dragoons. And I was just so thrilled with that job, and say, okay, so that's it. I'm done. I'm good. And then someone promotes you to be a lieutenant colonel. You say, geez, I was a lieutenant colonel. Could I command that regiment? Oh, there's other guys doing it, so great. And then they give you command and say, okay, that's it. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve, and that is command of my regiment. Everything beyond that is gravy. And that's really been my mantra.
So being a general now, is that good gravy, or is that gravy that is sometimes a little heavy?
It's a privilege. Now, it is a tremendous privilege. And again, just reflecting that, the best job I ever had was commanding my regiment up in Petawawa. But I used to say
Why is that?
Because you could make a difference for those soldiers and do it right away. And you could see the outcome of your decision immediately. We were very busy as a regiment. I can still remember the day, and I had a wonderful regimental sergeant major, chief warrant officer, Luke Rousseau. And we said, we've been so busy, driving the guys and the gals so hard. First day of school, I don't want anyone to come to work before coffee break. You guys, if you have young children home, walk your kids to school. We'll make it up later, don't worry about it, we'll work hard. But those kinds of things is stay at home. And I remember the spouses coming, the wives and the spouses coming back saying, thank you so much. because we're away so much, we're away so much. Or I'd say to the guys, listen, and I try to provide you predictability. I can't predict everything. But where I can, I'm going to try to tell you what we're actually going to do a few weeks or a few months out. So if you want to plan a holiday, you want to do something, I'm going to try to tell you about it. And recognize that, hey, stuff happens.
Right.
And we have to roll out as we did for the ice storm or the Winnipeg floods, and we think we're going to be out for 48 hours, and it turns out to be a month and a half.
Right.
But stuff happens, and everyone understands that. But you try to provide that kind of information and try to make it better. And so that's why I thought, as commanding officer, I just had such a wonderful time. Never want to give up that job.
I think the interesting thing about that is that's a really human way to treat other people too. It's not just humane, but that's a human way. That's being a human being, recognizing that these people working for you are not just workers, not just employees, but they're other human beings with lives and challenges and issues and responsibilities too. And I think when you treat people like that, that you breed a lot of loyalty in return, and people want to work for you and come to work. I'm pretty sure it was a successful way to approach your job.
Well, certainly, it's always interesting when folks told me that we didn't have a lot of domestic disputes. And the regimental doctor says, hey, sir, a lot of people have come off medication for stress.
Wow.
Just small little things, just say, okay. We still had big issues. We still had a lot of folks who dealing with a lot of issues. But how do you remove the stress, and how do you make sure that people are happy to come to work? And that's what I used to say to the soldiers. But every month I used to have a little town hall with everyone, and I'd say, okay, here's what's going on. Let's promote a couple of guys, and okay, let's take your questions and answers. And some of the questions were really tough. And I would say to them, there's a lot of things I can't do because those folks in Ottawa do it. Promote you, pay raises, that's well beyond me. But I can create the conditions so you're happy to come to work. And that's what we're going to do.
Can you do that now?
Oh, yeah. We try to do that. We try to do that now, but it's different because...
It's a bigger job.
It's a bigger job.
Bigger pool.
Yeah, it's a much bigger. I mean, the organization, as I say to the minister, I said, the mayor, the minister is basically the mayor of a very large city, and I'm his chief operating officer for the Canadian Forces. But we have 100,000 uniforms, almost 100,000 uniforms between regulars and reserve, 50,000 cadets. I have almost 5,000 rangers in the north on the coasts. And then even though it's the responsibility of another department, I worry about 1 million veterans who are part of this military family. And so again, you try to make a difference and try to create the conditions so they're all happy to come to work, But the issues are different. And at the same time, we've got tremendous people working all throughout the organization. And what I try to say to them is set the right tone. The problems are huge, but set a positive tone. And so people can take things on that positive way and try to find a solution. Get to yes if you can. If you can get to yes, it seems as if the default setting is always to no. Well, how do you get to yes? And in so doing, try to make it better for people.
Tell me about your wife, Leslie, and how you met her.
Well, Leslie was a school teacher, actually, an Ottawa school teacher, born in Toronto, raised in Ottawa, taught out in Carp initially, and then was hired by the Department of National Defense to go to Europe and teach the dependent children of military in Loire, Germany. And
was she a military child herself?
Well, her father had served, both her father and mother had served in the military. Her father, Bill, had been in the Ordnance Corps in World War II, and her mom had been a WAC, a Women's Army Corps, had been a sergeant in the Women's Army Corps. And but she was not obviously military, but she went to Germany, and she arrived, I think, in 1980, and her school was partnered with my unit, and at that time I was not with the unit, I was with another organization, the brigade headquarters. She had visited my unit, she had visited and met one of my soldiers, and so she was in the mess talking to a bunch of my colleagues, my friends, and I heard her mention a name of a soldier, and she got the story totally wrong, so I jumped in, and I was not really, I should have been a little bit more aware and conscious, and I was a little bit too abrupt. But anyway, I said, no, I think you have that wrong. And then I left. And then...
So that really set a good tone for the first time you asked her out on a date.
Well, I didn't ask her.
Ask you?
No, I didn't ask her out for
Okay.
a while. But shortly
you see
thereafter, she was walking out of a store, and I went up and I apologized. I said, I really am sorry. I just kind of jumped in there and so on. And she was walking out of the store with a racket in her hand. She had bought a racket. And I said, so you play some sports? She says, yeah, I was going to try to play some squash. And so I just bought this squash racket to go to play. And I said, so have you not played squash before? She said, no. I said, would you like me to help you to buy a squash racket? Because you bought a badminton racket. Can I give you a little bit of a hand there? So we went back in, we exchanged it, we got a squash racket. And so after that, a little while later, I didn't play squash before, so I started playing squash. Anyway, so over time, we got to know each other.
Did she forgive you?
I think so.
Okay.
I think
she hasn't
so.
held it over you.
No, we're about
your marriage?
in June. We're about to celebrate 30 years of marriage.
Oh,
so it's kind of worked out.
Do you think she really? I mean, I guess she probably did, having had parents who served, understand the lifestyle. But do you think she fully understood what she was getting into when she, as much as any of us ever can when we
I think the unique part for Leslie, not only did she hear things from her mom and dad, but being in large Germany, where you had about 8,000 military, Air Force, Army people, and you had about 20,000 family members there. You were basically living within a large base, military base kind of culture and construct. And so she was dealing with, at the time she was teaching grade 1, and so she was dealing with those dependents. She was talking with, as a teacher, to parents of military and those kinds of things. And so I think she learned really understanding a little bit of the culture.
You have 3 children, and they are all in the military, and you've covered all the bases. You've got one in the Air Force, one in the Navy, and one in the Army. Is that right?
Well, I haven't covered the bases. They've made their own. They've made their own choices.
Did they really? So
they made their own choices.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So when all 3 of your children told you that they were going to be following in your footsteps, just in terms of a career choice, an initial career choice, how did you react, and how did your wife react?
Well, first of all, my wife was not happy.
Okay. There's a trend here.
Not happy. Not happy at all. My wife Leslie believed that I was the contribution to Canada, and not her children as the contribution. We told our children long ago that they had to make their way in the world. Leslie nor I were raised with the silver spoon. We worked hard. Leslie, 3 jobs to get through university, and I went to military college and so on. So we said, we have all the registered education stuff. That's all there, but you've got to make your own way, and we'll reinforce success. And so my older boy was the first one to decide he was going to pull up his socks and made it to Royal Military College. Mm-hmm. And so he went to Royal Military College. And then a little while later, my younger son, hearing from my older boy's friends, decided that he was going to do it as well. Wow. And then it was finally my daughter who, out of the blue, sitting at the dinner table one evening, she says, "Dad, would you swear me in?" And I said, "Swear you into what? Have you joined the police, Ottawa Police, RCMP?" She says, "No, I joined the Navy." I said, "What do you mean you joined the Navy? I mean, they just phone you up today and say, join the Navy?" I said, No, I did all the registration, all of the screening. I've been doing it for months. Wow. I've done it on my own.
Did she not tell you because she was worried?
Well, she didn't tell me because she wanted to do it on her own.
Okay.
And I still remember meeting the recruiting officer. I was up in the gym working out, and this fellow I've known for a long time came up to me and said, "Sir, I got to tell you something, but you got to promise not to hit me." I said, "Jeff, I wouldn't touch you. What are you talking about?" I said, "I recruited your daughter." I said, "You did what?"
I take it back. I'm going to hit you.
She said she made me swear in a stack of Bibles that I wouldn't tell you. And I said, "Oh, good on her." And so
wow.
Leslie was, originally quite frustrated, but then obviously both she and I are very proud that the kids made their own way. They made their own decision, and and it's difficult. It's difficult for them. Mm. When they're on a course, they don't really want to say who their dad is.
Yeah. Kind of gives it away, though.
When my daughter, not really. Some corners of the country, you never
Okay.
know. It's a big country, and and some of the training is done through civilian agencies and so on. And so, some of them are asked, okay, give us a profile of your family, and they say, my dad's in the military, and then they carry on.
Sure.
So
I understand that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's a lot of different pressure. But the kids have made their own way, and I'm very proud of them.
Now, speaking of relieving pressure, I understand you're pretty good with the chainsaw. Is that true?
Oh, it's very true.
Okay.
It's very true. And we have
You don't bring it to work, though?
No.
No.
No. In fact, yesterday, my wife and I are both out there with chainsaws.
Do you both have your own chainsaws?
She has her own chainsaw.
Wow.
Yeah, she has her own chainsaw. And so yesterday, for most of it's downfall, wind-blown trees down, that kind of thing.
Right.
So we were out there yesterday, and I was cutting up the big logs, and Leslie was limbing with her chainsaw and having a bonfire and burning the stuff up and working hard and feeling good, and it's really therapeutic. Did
I understand that you built your own house?
No, I'm not that good. I'm into labor.
Small stuff?
I'm into labor. Okay. I'm into heavy work and hauling logs and cutting and working the splitter and the chipper and those kinds of things. I'm not into fine woodwork. So no, we had a great guy build our retirement home kind of thing. So. But
you obviously get a lot of pleasure from being outdoors too.
Yeah. After my father passed away, it was really my uncle Eddie, who took me up into the bush of northern Ontario, up to Kenora, north of Kenora, and we'd go camping and those kinds of things, and go fishing. And finally, I helped him build his cottage. I was just a young teenager at the time. When I wasn't flipping burgers, I was out there helping him build his cottage. But I got really a love for the woods, for the bush, for nature. Yeah,
and you run too. Is that right?
Well, I try to run, but there's some people who are in the Gazelle class. I'm in the Clydesdale class, so
that's okay. Slow and steady.
Yeah, I say I start slow and then I ease back. But when I get there, you'll know I'm there.
Make a lot of noise.
Exactly.
You just talked about your retirement home. Do you think that after this you'll decide to ease off into a less fast-paced life?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've got a little bit of energy left as I...
Yeah, Clydesdales generally do.
But, this is, next summer will be 37 years, and it's been a tremendous time, but at the same time I serve at the pleasure of government. So, each year as Chief of Defence Staff, I serve at the pleasure, and I've got a little bit of energy left, so it's really up to other folks to determine, but I try to make the best of each day for those men and women of the Canadian Forces.
If you could do one other thing, just as a last question, if there's been one other thing you've always wanted to do in your life, what would it be?
Sail around the world.
Okay. Well, that could be an interesting retirement.
But I'm not sure. I have to keep my wife happy, so I'm not sure we'll do that. But
it might be payback time for your wife.
I also have a love for sailing, and so when we can, we do that. But no, for me, it's, I would say, in uniform, is trying to make the lives of those men and women and their families better. And that's really what my focus has been on. And, each day it's making sure that wherever we put a man or woman in uniform, that they can achieve their mission. And to the degree possible, because I can't mitigate all the risk, to do it as safely as possible. But also it's to take care of their families, because those men and women can't serve without the love, the care, and the support of their families. And there's a lot of pressure in our families right now. Afghanistan, even the Libya mission, all of these missions of the past couple decades, starting way back with the Bosnias and the Rwandas and the Somalis and so on, has had this effect on our families. And to be able to support those families and to support our wounded, our ill, and our injured, who again, I believe that I'll be judged, the leadership of the Canadian Forces will be judged by how we care for our wounded, ill, and injured. That's really where I want to try to make a contribution on behalf of Canada.
Well, General, I really thank you for your time. I thank you for your service to our country, and I wish you the very best moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.